The honourable member for Calgary Elbow.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It was almost exactly 1 year ago today that I asked the Premier what the government was doing to get off the resource revenue roller coaster, and here's what she had to say, quote, "We are getting off the roller coaster. We are not tying our spending to the price of oil, and we are carefully bringing our spending into line." But here we are today with a budget that relies more on resource revenues than it did when this government took office. To the Premier, I will ask the same question I asked last year. Do you have any plan to get off the resource revenue roller coaster, or will you simply cross your fingers and hope that the price of oil goes up?
Honourable member. Honourable member. The Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, you know, I think it's important to note that our credit rating remains the second highest in the country, Mr. Speaker. It also comes on the heels of the biggest recession seen since the 1930s, Mr. Speaker. Alberta, notwithstanding that, is recovering, and things are starting to look up, even though we know there's more to do. Sales are up, Mr. Speaker. Wages are up, and we are forecasting growth of 4%, Mr. Speaker. This is good news.
Honourable members, I can't hear the information being shared. Would you keep the tone down, please? Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The members opposite clearly want to drag us down. They also hate facts. But here's a big one, Mr. Speaker. Since last June, our economy has created 70,000 full-time.
Lots of things are up except our credit rating, Mr. Speaker. It's going down, and the numbers don't lie. When this government took office, Alberta needed 19% of its revenues to come from resource royalties to balance. Today, that number is 27%. Economist Trevor Tomes said, quote, "We have to be honest, that policy choices led us here, and we are still very much along for the ride." And DBRS agrees. They're concerned the return to balance relies on recovery and resource revenues, rather than a fundamental adjustment of the budget. Again, to the Premier, what is your plan? How many teachers, nurses, and frontline employees will we not have because of the money now needed to pay the interest on the money?
Thank you, honourable member. Honourable Premier.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Interestingly, our plan is focused on ensuring that we protect our teachers and our nurses and our frontline workers, Mr. Speaker. That's exactly the choice that our government made when we got elected and discovered the mess that had been left, Mr. Speaker. So we are carefully working on that plan. You know, a couple of these credit agencies, what they actually want us to do is raise taxes by $3 to $4 billion or cut spending by $3 or $4 billion. Mr. Speaker, neither of those things are going to help us get out of the recession. Those are not the things that are going to create jobs and stimulate economic growth. What we're doing is, Mr. Speaker.
Second supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, unlike the NDP or the UCP, the Alberta Party has an actual plan. Our plan curbs government spending without hurting frontline services, reduces reliance on non-renewable resource revenue, and not only balances, but actually gets to a place where we get to pay back debt. Now, that is quite a concept, I know. But as part of our analysis in our shadow budget, we modeled the NDP budget plan, and guess what? It never, ever balances. To the Minister of Finance, you claim you'll balance the budget by 2023. Will you prove it by showing your work, including a detailed year-by-year plan to balance?
Quiet, please. Quiet. Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We are engaged right now in the beginning of Budget 2018 preparations. There will be a line that all Albertans can have an opportunity to tell us where more savings can be found at budget.alberta.ca. Mr. Speaker, there's also going to be telephone town halls. There's also going to be opportunities for Albertans around the province to hear me, and I'll hear them. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2018 is underway, and we have a path to balance, and we'll be releasing it then.